We're in summer shutdown just now, so the guys have 4 weeks summer holidays, and today is the second day of 3.5 weeks where it hasn't rained. That's been incredible.
That's good.
The last couple of weeks before we stop our shutdown in June, I was so hot. I've never seen it so hot in the still house. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, June was mental. All right. I think that's everyone who's joined us now. So we might get going. I'll just do tell anyone who might be on who's watching the recording or joining for the first time. My name's Luke. I'm the W Club manager. We do these digital drams, roughly every couple of weeks. Sometimes there's a bit of a gap, but then we have one after another. So it's all a bit of a flow. If it is your first time joining, I can see from the name list that there's a lot of familiar names, maybe a couple that I don't recognize. We want these to be super interactive, so do ask as many questions as possible. I know Gordon would be delighted to answer them. And I suppose that's enough for me. I suppose over to yourself, Gordon. Would you like to introduce yourself and maybe what order you'd like to do the lineup in tonight?
Well, thanks for having me along tonight, Luke, and thanks for joining me, folks. I got my tasting pack through the door yesterday, and I was absolutely chuffed to bits to see some new make spirit included in the pack. That's something that's sadly missing from a lot of these things. So we'll start with the new make, then the 12-year-old, 18-year-old, peated sherry, and we'll finish with Peatheart Batch 3, if that's okay.
Yeah,
it's a personal choice, but I've got 5 glasses here. I think that I'm pouring my well in advance ready before a wee sip and a wee sip later on. But if you only got 1 glass, that's not going to work, is it?
Yeah, I think we do with the packs, as you would have seen with the little insert that comes with them. We do suggest people, if they want to have multiple glasses, to bring some along. Fantastic. So will we get the new make poured?
Well, as I'm at the distillery, to hell of your silly little wee samples of new make, I'll get a man-sized half-litre glass of new make to play with here tonight. So, a new make is so important, and you make the best new make in the world, and you can put in a poor quality cask, you're not going to get a nice spirit of whiskey at the end of the day. And likewise, you can make a pretty crappy new make, put in a good cask, you're not going to get a good spirit. So new make is so important to us. We're aiming for consistency, consistent quality throughout the year, whatever the season we're doing. Far easier to make whiskey in the wintertime when the weather's cold. You've got plenty of water to play with. Summertime's a wee bit more of a challenge, so we just need to tweak the process a wee bit just to ensure that consistency. What's the strength of this one? 68.2% alcohol. And we can legally distill to 94.8% alcohol and still call it Scotch whisky. We find if we go above 70% alcohol here, it becomes too clean, too pure, and we lose some of those compounds that we want to retain in our new make spirit. So ideally, we're looking for something fruity, estery, and a little bit of cereal, a little bit of malt in there as well. And it's something that's a bit tricky to pick up on, particularly these higher strengths. So if we're nosing new make spirit at the distillery, we'll have a wee sniff and a wee sip. No, we don't have a wee sip because that would be against the law. We have a wee sniff, neat, and then we'll reduce the strength of the new make spirit. We'll take it down to 23, maybe as low as 25% alcohol. That really kills the alcohol, and you can smell what's happening behind the alcohol. You get a similar effect if you just get some in your hand. Yeah. Have a wee sniff, let the alcohol evaporate a wee bit if you rub your hands together, and then have a wee sniff again, and just keep sniffing. And hopefully you can pick up that nice wee malty, biscuity, cereal note that we're looking for.
It's
this stuff makes it beautiful. Sorry?
So I was going to say it's very different on the hand. You do get that much more malty, biscuity compared to the kind of almost sour blackcurrant fruit notes that kind of come through on the nose. They're two very different flavors, but yet quite similar at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to throw some water in it when you're there and see what happens to it. By the by, this stuff makes absolutely beautiful screen wash for your car. It doesn't freeze. Your glass is crystal clear, and everything smells so good when you wash your windows.
It reminds me of all these distilleries that started producing hand sanitizer during COVID, Gordon.
Yeah. Early days of COVID, I was walking about with a 60ml sample bottle of new make spirit mixed with olive oil just to soften my hands a wee bit.
There you go. So this would have come off the stills at 68.2%. Would it, Gordon? Been captured.
Yeah. Spirit runs here we're very consistent. We've got balanced distillation, so we'll go on spirit. We're probably 20, maybe 25 minutes in 4-shot. This is an automation, a computer-free distillery. We encourage people to use these things and use this thing a little bit. So the stillman will keep an eye on the temperature, strength, and clarity of the spirit when we're running a 4-shot. After 20-25 minutes when we're having, manually swing the spout onto the spirit bowl. We'll go on the spirit here, we're looking for 75-76% alcohol by volume. And as time goes on, the lighter, stronger alcohol is easier to distill, so that the strength of the distillate running in the safe just gradually tails down. 3 hours 30 minutes, 3 hours 40 minutes, we'll have come down to our cut point of 62%, at which point we'll swing back on to fames. So between our 75 down to 62, that's going to give us 68.5% alcohol in the spirit vat.
And then at what volume do you cask at, or what ABV? I mean,
we fill some at cask strength, and we'll fill some at vat strength, and we'll also reduce some fillings to 63.5%. It's nice to play about with these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, very good. And maybe Gordon, while people kind of familiarize themselves and sip away and knows this new make, do you want to, your obviously role is distillery manager at the distillery. Am I correct? Do you want to maybe talk a bit more about your own day-to-day in terms of your interaction at the distillery?
Well, for those that aren't familiar with anCnoc, there's no such place as anCnoc distillery for the start. I manage at Knockdhu distillery, small, very traditional Highland malt whisky, Highland malt whisky distillery. So we're 10 miles from Huntly, northeast Highlands, about 45 minutes, maybe an hour from Aberdeen. Pretty small site. We've got a team of 6 who actually make whisky. My assistant manager does all the work, keeps the place going. And sad to say, I'm just employed for my good looks and charm and personality. It's a tough gig, but somebody's got to do it. We run the site 24/7, apart from this summer when we got a slightly extended shutdown to do an engineering project. Single manned or single personed operation, so we've got one operator on shift at a time, and it's just a cracking wee place to work.
Marvelous.
As I say, the whole site's manually controlled, and I think everybody wears one of these fat bits or tracking devices of some sort these days. My guys are doing 20, 22, 23, 24,000 steps in a working shift. They're continually on the go.
Yeah, that's some going. I used to work in hospitality, and you'd do something between 20 and 30,000 on a busy night in the restaurants. I feel their pain. It's some going.
To be honest, it's not a pain, it's a pleasure. I think there's too many distilleries these days are run by computers. You've essentially got a green button and a red button. The computer's going to make the computer's going to decide what's going to happen in the process. Here, we really do encourage people to use these things, use this thing, think about what's happening. And the guys have to multitask. We've got one person, a chef, looking after everything. Malt intake, milling, mashing, fermentation, distillation. It's a busy old shift. But the guys, they're happy with the level of automation we have. There's less to go wrong. The guys really look forward to coming to work. They know they're going to have a busy shift, and they will go home tired. But it's a good tired. If you sat on your backside in front of a computer screen for 8 hours a day, you're going to go home tired. It's not a good tired.
I always found it's less the going home tired is the problem. It's the waking up with sore legs. that's the difficult bit. So
That's an age thing.
Sorry?
That's an age thing.
No, yeah, but that's true. That's probably a fair comment. But whiskey's all about age, Gordon, you know. The so in terms of the flavors in this new make, as the evening goes on and we go through the other drams, what kind of things characteristics should we be looking out for that kind of evolve from this new make and that maybe aren't coming from the wood and the other whiskies?
Well, hopefully you're going to pick up on that estery, fruity, that slightly malty cereal note, and that should be present the whole way through. We've got our job right. Fingers crossed that you should pick it up.
And it becomes much sweeter. I don't know, maybe it's just me, Gordon, but it's a lot sweeter when you add a bit of water. It's quite interesting. It's a very approachable new make. If you know, but obviously not all of them are. In Ireland, there's a big tradition. I don't know if you get it as much here in Scotland of bottling new make and calling it poitín. But this is actually quite an interesting drink as opposed to some of the paint stripper that gets passed off as that.
Well, we'll take that as a compliment. Thank you, Luke. Yeah. Be very, very careful with new makes, but if you drink too much, your hair falls out.
That's funny because this is the misinformation in the whiskey industry, because I always told if you rub it on your head, your hair grows back.
Oh, try that. Yeah. Probably too bloody late now, isn't it? Yeah.
So
new makes, we actually make two different new makes here. So this is a plain unpeated. For 5, maybe 6 weeks a year, we'll run the distillery in heavily peated malt. So if you can imagine the same fresh, fruity, estery, biscuity new make spirit, but combined with a little bit of smoke, that's what we're going to do for 5-6 weeks a year. It's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely adore it. You go home from work at night, your clothes smell of smoke, the dogs smell of smoke. If you still have hair, it stinks of smoke. Everything stinks of smoke. It's absolutely gorgeous. A couple of guys here absolutely detest it. It's a real sentence when we're running peated malt for some of them. But it's an interesting wee variation to what we normally do throughout the rest of the year. And I'm so pleased you used the word approachable there. That's a word I often use when we're speaking about anCnoc. I've got my 12-year-old poured here, ready and waiting. And to me, that's the ultimate in approachable drams. Normally, when you hear the words sweet, soft, smooth, subtle and elegant used at the distillery, you immediately think people are speaking about me. But in this case, we're actually talking about our 12-year-old anCnoc. 12-year-old, it's mainly bourbon matured, maybe a very small little bit of sherry in there. It's bottled at 40% alcohol, and it's the only one from the current range which is chill filtered.
We may as well make sure everyone's got that poured. If we'll come on to the 12-year-old. No, obviously the new make isn't something that you can purchase off the whiskyshop.com, but the 12-year-old is. And just a reminder because I forgot to mention at the start, it's my bad. All the drams apart from the new make tonight will be getting 15% off everyone who's on this tasting to buy after this. So yeah.
Me too.
Pardon? You can as well, Gordon. Yeah, I'll send it on to you. Do you get lads in the distillery, do they get a monthly allowance of the whiskey or?
Yeah, I mean, we used to get the daily dram, which has been thankfully done away with a good few years ago, and people have to drive, working on their own, working in the machinery. You really don't want to be pouring people big drams from that work. So they get a product allowance each month. And as well as anCnoc, we've got other products in the portfolio. We've got sister distilleries, Pulteney, Balblair, Speyburn, Balmenach. So we've got 5 distilleries in the IBHL group. So there's 4 cracking malt whiskies there. Well, 5 cracking malt whiskies actually. We just don't use Balmenic for single malt these days. But to make up for that, we've got Caroon Gin from Balmenic. So it's another decent product.
So we normally encourage people to, Gordon, in the chat, to share their tasting notes. Mela said, I think I would use this for cocktails. Very sweetened would just blow my head off. And we had a comment earlier from Matthew, said I picked up the anCnoc 12 from Brian's in Clitheroe last summer, and was intrigued to explore it some more. Great idea putting the new make in. I wouldn't be partaking tonight. Sorry, I wouldn't be partaking tonight, but we'll certainly be trying something the weekend. So keep your comments coming in, and also your tasting notes. We've been very light on the tasting notes in the new make. But as anyone like Kirsty on there who joins regularly will attest to, we love to hearing your tasting notes. Kirsty says a nice bit of spice with the fruit, gingerbread maybe. Remind us, I know you mentioned it already, but did you say this was predominantly ex-bourbon and then a small amount of sherry, Gordon?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to vary slightly from batch to batch. It should be reasonably consistent, but I don't know, maybe 95% bourbon.
Also, it's quite a high portion of bourbon. And in terms of the sherry, and maybe we'll talk about this more in terms when we come on to the sherry cask 1. Do you have a kind of a consistent supply of sherry, or do you deal with maybe the Speyside cooperage, or do you have a particular place where you source any of your barrels from?
Yeah, I'm so fussy about where we source the wood from. The casks, like people, are unique. No 2 casks are exactly the same. So that we know what to expect from our maturing whiskey in 3, 5, 10, 12, 15 years' time. It pays dividends to source the best quality and most consistent quality wood we can get. Bourbons here, just this year we're filling XJD. In the last couple of years, we've filled a lot of ex-Maker's Mark, which are absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely adore those casks. The sherry casks are all ex-Oloroso from Miguel Martinez. So once again, it's a very high quality, very consistent source of wood.
Brilliant. We've got some great taste notes. Kyle said definitely getting strawberry jam with the new make. It's an interesting one. Do you know what Gordon, do you know what one strawberry said to the other strawberry?
What did one strawberry say to the other strawberry? It
said, look, if you weren't so damn sweet, we wouldn't be in this jam.
Jesus.
Frank D said the new make is surprisingly rich, slight licorice in there, nicely medicinal. Looks like I'm getting a bit of rhubarb on the new make. It's interesting because when you come onto the 12, there is obviously those, as you said yourself, you do get some of those new make characteristics coming through, and then a lot more of that kind of vanillins. But because the ABV drop, even though you're going up in age, you're going down in ABV, you notice that the mouthfeel changes as well. Like it's maybe it's the chill filtering, or maybe it's just the lower ABV, but it definitely, the presence physically in the mouth in terms of textures is much different. So it's interesting comparison. I don't know if you get that kind of that yourself, Gordon, or anyone else in the chat for that matter.
I kind of think we've got a dram for every occasion in the range just now. No disrespect to the 12-year-old, but if you go home from work on a Tuesday night and you just want to pour a dram, sit down, drink it, and enjoy it without feeling the need to sit down and sniff it and sip it and analyse a thing to death, just pour it, drink it, and enjoy it. 12-year-old ticks the box every time. You've got friends coming around on a Friday night, you want something a wee bit more special, we'll move up the 18-year-old, a bit livelier, a bit more cask influence, a wee bit more happening there. Friends are coming around on a Saturday night, very odd occasion, we get good weather up here, you're going to fire up the barbecue, reach for one of the peated whiskies. Or if it's pissing down, like if it's raining, as it seems like it's done most of the summer, Saturday night, reach for the 24-year-old, which I'm sad to say isn't in the tasting pack. And that's one of these whiskies you want to pour, sniff, sip for 2 hours, when half the pleasure of whiskey's in the nose. So there's a dram for every occasion, I think, in the current range.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like we actually were very close to having the 24 on the tasting pack. I think there was a slight delay in bottling or restocking it, so that the stock wasn't going to be available in time for the packaging of this tasting, which is a shame, because it would have been a great little extra dram to have on, because it's a cracking whiskey. We got some more tasting notes in there as well.
24 stocks are very limited, so if you see a bottle, snap it up, grab it, because there's not a lot out there.
There you go, folks. You heard it here. Get a bottle of 24. It's the one whiskey you're not going to get your 15% off on. Luke says, I'm getting a bit of rhubarb on the new make. I think I might have said that already. But Guy says vanilla medicinal for the 12-year-old. Mel said strong, thick treacle taste for me with the new make, which is interesting. Treacle's an interesting taste note.
Yeah.
Frank has said, at the 24-year-old in my loft unopened. The 12 give custard sweets smooth, said David. Custard sweets is actually a good tasting note. That kind of vanilla with that hint of sweetness. I think I get what you mean, David. Definitely. But I suppose the beauty of these is the kind of subjectivity. I don't know. Is there anything particular that this dram always reminds you of, Gordon?
That's a good question. One I hadn't considered before.
But while you're thinking about it, we have this dram is or this bottle, if you were to buy the 70cl, is £34. That's before your 15% off. So I mean, it's tremendous value. We often, Gordon, look at both the quality of the whiskey on these tastings, but also, you know, the kind of the bang for your buck, because we've been looking enough. All our W clubbers on here have been looking enough to try some really expensive and tremendous drams on that, and it's a real privilege. But finding the dram that's the right kind of kind of ratio of spend to flavor is great to hear. So great to see. So I mean, the fact that anyone on here, when I give it the code at the end, could be picking this up for $28.90 with the discount. I mean, it's incredibly good value for a dram like this. That's really approachable and drinkable. So now that I bought you that time, what does this dram remind you of, Gordon?
Probably good food and good company, actually.
That's a good answer.
But if we're entertaining, we like to cook, we like foods, and it's generally paired with whiskey of some sort.
And would you be one for
12-year-old and Parmesan cheese?
Sorry?
12-year-old and Parmesan cheese is a match made in heaven. The sweetness of whiskey and the saltiness of the cheese is just great. It just goes so well.
Parmesan's been something I've had to forego with the credit crunch. You know, it's an expensive cheese, but I'll next when the economy picks up, I'll try the two together. We got some great extra taste notes in there. Kyle Wallace said a bit of fresh green apple on the finish of the 12. Kirsty says, all your mouth feel and more mellow than 12. Similar flavors coming through, perhaps a little more sweetness, vanilla notes. Frank D said, yeah, agree, David. Rhubarb and custard sweets. In terms of maybe just before we come on to the 18-year-old, Gordon. Because I don't want to commit sacrilege when we get up to the more the older, more expensive drams. But so while we're on the 12, would you recommend this in a cocktail or any kind of mixed drink?
But were you primed to ask me that question, by any chance?
No, not at all.
No. Better be very, very careful what I say here, isn't it?
My part speak your mind. You're amongst friends here, Gordon.
Yeah, okay. In my part of the world, a whiskey cocktail is whiskey and probably 2, maybe 3 drops of decent quality water. We'll leave it at that. No ice, no coke, no umbrellas, please.
Fair enough. A diplomatic answer. Yeah, Stephen Lowe said the 12-year-old with St. Agar Blue cheese is minted. And Matthew said from the full anCnoc 12 I got last summer, I remember it was fresh and peachy on the nose, but then contrasted on the palate with unburnt tobacco. Ian says anCnoc 12 over vanilla ice cream is amazing. So that's one type of mixed drink, you know. There you go.
I'll concur with that one. There's a fantastic ice cream shop up in my part of the world, the Ice Cream Parlour in Fochabers near Elgin. And if you're ever up this way, you have to go. The owner, Sheila Gray, comes up with some Pretty eccentric, pretty unusual ice cream. She did a haggis ice cream a couple of years ago, which is just way out there.
Wow.
We're entertaining guests at the distillery, VIPs. We'll take a fish and chip van in, and this is sold as a traditional Scottish meal. So we'll freshly cook fish and chips and simple ingredients, if they're handled well and treated well, cooked in front of you, doesn't go wrong. But Sheila makes this beautiful honeycomb and 12-year-old anCnoc ice cream, which is to die for. It's absolutely gorgeous. You have to give that a rip if you're up in this part of the world. I don't know about putting whiskey over your ice cream, but have some ice cream in your mouth and maybe a wee sip of whiskey in behind that. And I'll agree with Ian, the 12-year-old and good quality vanilla ice cream go really, really well.
Brilliant. And Ian Callender there has been to the ice cream place you mentioned. So he says weird flavors, but all the ones I've tried are great. There's a place where I grew up in Ireland, Gordon, called Murphy's Ice Cream, and they do brown bread ice cream, and it doesn't sound appealing, but it's actually marvelous. So yeah.
The sandwich?
No, ice cream. It's a brown bread flavored ice cream.
Oh, right. So it's not a slice of bread, ice cream.
No.
Bread, no.
Not quite. Although that's an idea, but then no. Yeah, it's like traditional Irish brown bread, almost soda-esque. Like, you know, it's the one that kind of crumbles in your mouth, as opposed to kind of a more usual brown sliced pan. But you know, just when you said the haggis, it reminded me of that. Will we come on to the 18-year-old maybe?
Yeah, go for that. I poured mine 10 minutes ago, so it's had a chance to breathe. It is a little bit different, so it's natural colour, non-chill filtered, and it's bottled at 46%. So it's a wee bit stronger there. 18-year-olds probably spent 9, maybe 10 years maturing the bourbon cask, and then we transfer the liquid to first fill, or also to finish off its ripening, its maturation. So for me, we get the best of both worlds in the 18. Absolutely adore bourbon matured whiskies. That's maybe just an age thing, which I'm going through just now. So the 18, we still got lots and lots of lovely toffee, vanilla, bourbon notes there. But it's combined really, really well, and that spiciness, dry fruit we're going to get from the sherry casks. So obviously this is the Friday night dram when we've got folks round for a bit of crack.
I mean, the nose is so different. It's quite interesting, and the ABV on this, which is what 46%. You said this was the only, the 12 was the only one that's chill filtered. So the rest of these aren't.
That's right. Yeah. We did a cask strength a couple of years ago. You may remember that one. We did our 125th anniversary in 2019. So we did a cask strength 16-year-old ex-bourbon. I don't know if you had that one in the shop, but if folks get a chance to come down and give it a wee taste, it's gorgeous. It's really, really nice.
I'd say it sounds impressive. I unfortunately hadn't had a chance to try that one, but it sounds great. I did try a one that you did aged in beer casks from a Glasgow brewery last year, whose name is escaping me right now, but it was a really interesting collaboration. I don't know if you remember it.
Was it Overtone?
It was Overtone, yeah. Came out around this time last year.
You tried a whiskey?
Yeah, I think it was Overtone. It was definitely an anCnoc whiskey aged in a craft beer cask anyway.
Okay. I knew we were doing that. I didn't think it'd reached the bottling stage, but never mind.
Actually, maybe what it was, now that I think of it, I think the beer had been in the whiskey casks, and it was a tasting that was paired with the whiskies. Yeah. Sorry, just misremembered that. Sorry, I was trying to spread more information.
Mega rich stout, wasn't it? Yeah, that was actually a decent beer.
Yeah, it was a lovely beer. You're right. The reason that threw me is because obviously it was the anCnoc casks, but also we went to the brewery and we tried the whiskies side by side. So we tried like an anCnoc 12 and an 18 and something else, along with different beers of theirs paired. So I think that's what confused me. But you're right, yeah. It was the beer aged in the anCnoc barrels rather than the other way around. My apologies.
Was it a messy night, Luke?
No, actually, it wasn't. I think I might have even been driving.
Right.
It was a perfectly normal night. So yeah. It's just time, Gordon, as we get older. So this is £98. This retails with us, which with 15% off brings it down to 83.30. So it's a nice big chunk off. Gary Hill has said 18-year-old, more rounded, sweeter toffee. Definitely get a lot more of those toffee notes coming through. Maybe slightly less tannic as well. I don't know if you'd agree, Gordon, but it's a really interesting whiskey. In terms of how long these have all been in the range, the 18-year-old, is it how long has these three, let's say obviously been under 24 here, but the 12, 18 and 24, how long have they been out as part of the anCnoc core range?
Well, 12-year-old's been since day one. The 18-year-old replaced a 16-year-old. The previous 16-year-old was all second fill ex-bourbon casks. And if you get a chance to find a bottle of that, taste it, grab it with both hands. It's absolutely gorgeous. The 18's probably been on the go for, jinx, kind of lose track of time here, maybe 5-6 years. The current 24-year-old replaced a 22-year-old that we had a few years ago. I think with the old 16-year-old we had, towards the end of his days, a lot of the stock was over-aged, over-matured anyway. So although it said 16 years in the label, the liquid was probably 18, 19 years old anyway.
Oh, very good. And Kyle Wallace said 18 in the nose, vanilla, honey, custard, bananas, oiled pears. So there's some great tasting notes there, folks. Keep them coming. Actually, boiled pears is an interesting one because I suppose maybe I was just, because of the contrast to the 12, I was much caught a lot more with the kind of darker sugars and maybe kind of more almost sherry-esque notes. But the more it sits there, the more you do get a lot of those kind of orchard fruit flavors and stuff coming through. It's definitely a dram that develops as you sit with it. In terms of what you'd mentioned, Gordon, earlier on, and which maybe some people on here would like to understand more about, the fact that obviously you're at Knockdhu distillery, but you produce a whiskey called anCnoc. Could you maybe tell us a bit more about the story behind that and the kind of the logic around the kind of the whiskey and the branding and the, yeah, because obviously it's quite a distinctive label as well in terms of the sort of serif text on the kind of clear backdrop.
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. We had an incident yesterday where somebody got confused once again. So we are Knockdhu distillery. Another distillery called Knockdhu up near Aberlour. So the names are very, very similar. Inverhouse, IBHL, bought Knockdhu from SMD in 1988. They've been silent, they've been mothballed for 5 years. Bought the distillery with stock. They started selling Knockdhu single malt whiskey in 1989, and things were taken to no problem at all for about 3, maybe 4 years. And then an agreement was reached with the owners of the Knockdhu distillery. We would change the name of the whiskey from Knockdhu to anCnoc so we wouldn't confuse the public. I had a meeting arranged yesterday morning, 9 o'clock, with a contractor. 9:15, my contractor hadn't turned up. 9:20, I phoned him to see where he was. Well, I'm standing outside your office waiting to get in. Sorry, you're at the wrong distillery, Bob. And it happens so often.
And what's the distance between the two?
Yeah, but 35 minutes, so it's not the end of the world. But we've had loads of oil that were destined for here that have gone to Knockdhu. We've had bagpipers that were destined for Knockdhu turning up on our doorstep. It's actually quite a common mistake to make. So marketing wanted to change the name of the distillery from Knockdhu Distillery to anCnoc Distillery, which I thought was a horrible thing to do. So I told them that was against the law. We couldn't do it. So it's Knockdhu Distillery. In the industry, the distillery is just known simply as the Knock.
Brilliant. Yeah, and in terms of the branding, I mean, it's an incredibly distinctive bottle. Especially now that a lot of brands are moving away from that more kind of traditional long tall neck bottle shape. It's very kind of I don't want to say I will say simplistic, but not in a derogative way, not in a pejorative. It's very clean. It's a crisp label. What was the kind of the thoughts around the aesthetic of it?
You know, that packaging is probably about 20 years old, which is quite hard to believe that something can last that long and still look fresh and current. This is a simplistic, minimalist packaging. Our biggest single market is Sweden for anCnoc. It has been a number of years. I mean, Sweden has paid to feed and educate my children and dogs. So thank you very much, Sweden. So to say thank you to Sweden, I drive 2 Volvos. That's a wee bit of payback. But when we launched in Sweden, sales went through the roof, and nobody was quite sure why. So they did a bit of research into it, and it's mainly down to the packaging to get people interested, get people hooked. And the packaging is clean, simple, stylish. It's very, very elegant, very minimalist, which is Scandinavian.
Yeah, no, they do love that kind of the minimalist design, but also that kind of clean typography. It definitely works. We've got some interesting tasting notes coming in there while we were chatting. So Darren has said that the 18 year has toffee, vanilla, and cream on the nose and taste. The finish smooth with brown sugar and apple. Frank has said blackcurrant jam for the 18 on the finish. Meta says had the anCnoc 16 whiskey shop exclusive a few months back. 18 reminds me of that, vanilla and fruit, a bit less heat with less heat. So some fantastic tasting notes there. Keep them coming in. We might maybe slowly. I know you've.
These are great notes. I'm actually going to pin. I'm going to pinch some of these notes. I'm going to pinch some of these notes for the tasting notes and our labels, if you don't mind. We've got a reasonable degree of consistency there as well.
Yeah, well, what W Club members don't know is when they sign up in the T's and C's, they give away all their both their image rights and their tasting notes rights. You know, so we can exploit them. That's all part of the contract. We might get. I suppose we were doing the Peated Sherry Cask was next in the order. Was it not, Gordon?
Yep, that's the way to go, I think.
You might maybe slowly come on to that one. So you obviously mentioned that the peat is a separate distillation in terms of the run. How many months out of the year do you run that again? And what kind of volume is it like compared to your non-peated malt?
Probably with 5, maybe 6 weeks of peated malt a year. And the average calendar year will process 4,400, 4,500 tonnes of malt through the distillery, of which 500 to 600 tonnes will be heavily peated. That's probably quite a switched on, quite an aware group here tonight, but we get so many people coming to the distillery saying, no, I don't want to try your peat whiskey, I don't like peat. And that's possible because they've had a bad experience or an unpleasurable experience with an Islay or a West Coast peat, which is big peat. The Scottish Whisky Research Institute did a very, very good study about 10 years ago, and they chemically analysed peats from different specific geographic regions in Scotland. Islay West Coast peat has got a very high level of that guaiacol compound that gives you that medicinal TCP iodine taste. The peat that we use is an Aberdeenshire peat, which is more heathery, so we're looking for a bonfire, wood ash, barbecue smoke rather than that big medicinal peaty hit. So when we persuade some of these folk that don't like peated whiskies to try an peated whiskey, where we've got that nice, fresh, fruity estuary spirit, and I think the balance with this nice barbecue wood fire smoke, that the balance is very, very good, in my opinion. So we get a lot of people here saying don't like peat, and they'll leave realizing, well, there's actually more to peat than they were aware of, and they do actually like peat. Production point of view, peated malt is difficult to work with. It tends to be very dirty. The maltsters don't want to overdress it. If they take away too much dust, make the malt too clean, they remove phenols as well, so it tends to be pretty manky. The husk, the outer shell of the malt, it seems to be affected. It becomes very hard, very brittle if it's dried using peat. It's almost kind of case hardening. So we'll open up the mill rolls by maybe 2-3 thousandths of an inch, just maybe a slightly coarser grind. So it affects the yield a wee bit, but we get a better quality produce, and it's easier to handle in the plant. We lose phenols the whole way through the production process. When we're mashing malted barley, 43-45 parts per million phenol. From that, we'll manage to retain possibly 30 parts per million in the new make spirit. So you lose phenols with the draft, spent grains in the mash tun, you lose phenols through fermentation, you lose phenols in pot ale, wash distillation, you lose phenols in your spent lees, and phenols decay very, very quickly during maturation as well. So it's a very interesting world, the world of phenols, isn't it?
It is. It's also one of those funny ones where we had Tobermory on recently, and the range was not too dissimilar in the sense that we tried some of the Tobermory and then we tried some of the Legic. So obviously they have a similar kind of split their distilling time concept wise, but we talk about the impact of phenols and parts per million, and when you measure, obviously measured beforehand, it's not taking into account all the things that you just described there. If you're measuring the phenol level at the kind of the start of the process. But what came up, and I can't remember who said it, I think someone in the chat, that some of the heavier whiskies that are meant to be higher phenols, let's say your Bruichladdich Octomores, often don't nose as smoky as, let's say, an Ardbeg that's meant to be less. So that they're even when we know that it's meant to be super smoky, it's not always, doesn't always pick it up that way, at least on the nose. I know they do tend to have a bigger hit in the palate, but they don't always smell. I mean, we tried some like whiskies that are meant to be 5-15, quite a low PPL or PPM. I mean, Connemara, the Irish whiskey, which would be my background, has quite a low phenol count, yet the whiskey can nose like really smoky, even if it doesn't taste that way. So yeah, it's an interesting one to kind of get the different flavors and why, try and just dissect why. Is it the type of cask? Is it the length of time in cask? Why these things don't often play out as you expect? I'm not sure if that's something something you'd agree with, or something you've any further thoughts on, Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different factors in play there. It's probably just as well we don't know the answers to them all, isn't it?
Yeah, the mystery is part
different ways of different ways of labelling peat whiskies as well. We'll come on to Peatheart Batch 3 in a wee while. Peatheart, I haven't actually seen it yet. I believe it's been bottled, but I haven't seen it. Have you got that one in the store yet, Luke?
Which one was that? Sorry, batch. This one here, is it?
The Peatheart, sorry, the new Peatheart. Have you got batch 3?
Yeah, this is batch 3 that we're trying here. So this came into the shop. Start, I want to say 3rd of July, and that's what these two. So yeah, these two whiskies here. This one, the Sherry Peated and the Peatheart, both came out around the same time. And this tasting tonight actually with you is to celebrate that release. But they're definitely on our website and in most, if not all, of our stores at the moment. So
that's cool. So I don't know if you remember pre-Peatheart, we had it was actually quite a busy peated range. We had Tusker, Flotter, Rutter. God, what else was there? It was quite a broad range of Peatheart, Barlow, and these peated whiskies showed the phenol content in the bottle which was a unique, pretty unusual thing to do. When we moved on to Peatheart, we stated the phenol content in the malted barley, so it's a far bigger number. And I'm led to believe that Peatheart Batch 3 is going to show the phenol content in the malt and the phenol content in the liquid on the bottle. So that's a very good discussion point, talking point when it comes to sales.
Yeah, no, that is. I actually have a picture of the bottle here in front of me. So it does say 34 ppm malted barley, 13.3 ppm whiskey. So that goes to what we were just discussing about the difference between when you measure it when it's barley and when it's distilled. It says heavily peated batch 3 throughout the Scottish uplands, most extensively in the north and west. You will find the heart of the peatlands, remote and isolated yet rich in iconic wildlife. This environment rules the landscape and provides a valuable fuel for the whiskey making process. anCnoc, Highland single malt Scotch whiskey, pronounced anCnoc or anCnoc, non-chill filtered, natural colouring. So there you go, Gordon. That's the one for the one we haven't come on to yet, in case anyone thinks we're jumping ahead. Yeah, so it does have that.
Did you commit that to memory?
No, I've just read that. I have the bottle on the screen in front of me here. So. I wish I was that good. I know I did a few readings at Mass when I was a kid, but I've never quite been the public speaker I wish I was. We also had a question there in the chat from Guy Hill, who said, very pleasant peated barbecue bonfire, gentle in the peated world, and said, what's the price point? So I've replied in the chat, for anyone who's not seen it, it says £45, and then that's obviously before the 15% off. So we're dropping a price point down from the 18, but obviously you add in the peated bit. Now this is 43%, Gordon. So is this one non-chill filtered as well?
Yeah.
So
to be quite honest, I couldn't tell you. I'll hold my hands up and say I don't know.
Okay.
I should have.
No, it's just interesting because it's the same ABV as
this.
It's
actually a step up. The 12 is 40%.
Oh, it's a 1240. My apologies. Yeah. Perfect.
Peated sherry this is a little bit different. All the peated expressions we've done before have only been peated liquid. Peated sherry is a mixture of peat and unpeated whiskies. They've been mixed together and finished in a sherry cask. Sometimes a wee bit wary of peat and sherry in the same glass because they're two big flavours, and sometimes you just get that flashing of heads, locking of horns. It doesn't work. But I think they've balanced or married very well here.
No, it really works, and it seems to be going down well with people in the chat. Mela said that 12 is 43%, but I've just had a look there. That's a typo by the person who does our labels. So it does, on the little sample pack that was sent out, it does say 43%, but it's meant to say Gordon's right, it is 40%. So my apologies for confusing anyone. It wasn't our intention to mislead. So this is actually 40%. So sorry about that. Frank has said peated sherry is like a friendly, more gentle Ardbeg Ugadal. That's a cracking whiskey, so a high praise. I did say there was some of those kind of barbecue notes do remind me of the Ardbeg Dark Cove, which was a particular favorite of mine. Particularly that kind of it's almost like a really well seasoned brisket on the finish, and kind of the sweetness and the smokiness. Quite interesting. Matt said this might be the first sherry I've had that doesn't burn on the way down. So that's interesting. I mean, that a sherry would burn on the way down, Matt. I mean, it's quite a highly prized form of cask aging. So it's interesting that you let us know in there what your favorite, what your preferred cask type is, Matt. Would it be bourbon or a different type? That's interesting. This is the beauty of it all. It kind of shows our kind of subjectivity in terms of our likes and dislikes. I suppose we could come on to the while keeping a bit of this to kind of for a side-by-side comparison, Gordon. Maybe come on to the Peatheart batch 3 if you want now.
Yeah, sure. Peatheart Batch 3 is probably the palest liquid we have here tonight. Its name suggests this is the third batch of Peatheart. So batch 1, batch 2, they've been very well received, and they've sold through pretty quickly. It's quite easy to make a very, very heavily peated whiskey where you can't taste anything except smoke, and it's like licking an ashtray. It's not very pleasant. Well, some folk enjoy that, and it's not my tastes.
Yeah, we
So
don't
I think
judge
this is a
here.
really good example of that fresh, fruity anCnoc make we smelt half an hour ago. Few years working a bit of magic and combined with that lovely, sweet, soft Aberdeenshire barbecue wood smoke peat. And this is a funny one for me. I mean, water's a very, very personal thing, but 2 drops of water in this one makes such a difference. It really brings the peat to the fore, and to me, it makes the liquid insanely very, very sweet. And this paired with a Parmesan cheese, or somebody to that I sent a girl early on, a Parmesan Strathdown Blue or a Stilton peat whiskey and cheese, just a match made in heaven.
No, certainly I could definitely imagine this one going well with a good cheese. Particularly as you say, Parmesan or as someone said in the chat, like a blue cheese, it would be yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Having said that, I think the 18-year-old might have gone well with a goat's cheese in terms of the flavors and textures. But there you go. We've got some comments in there. So Colin asked, that was the 12 ever 43%? Has always been 40%. Go back on our typo.
Yeah, some people won't let things go, will they? 12-year-old is 43% for some markets. I think South Africa and the United States, I think they're 43%.
There you go, Colin. You must have picked it up in South Africa.
Peated Sherry, I think Sweden may possibly have been a 40% bottling, so I was pleasantly surprised to see 43% on the label in this sample tonight.
Because 43% is the legal minimum in South Africa, isn't it? For spirits classed, whiskies classed as so every whiskey that we produce here in Scotland or in Ireland that wants to export in that country has to produce a 43% version. So it's an interesting little quirk. So yeah, and Mel is trying to extort us and report us for misleading on the ABV. So brilliant.
Your problem, not mine.
It's just a typo, folks. Come on. Yeah, so it'd be great if people could get back in touch with some actual tasting notes and some opinions on the Peatheart Batch 3. I think it is quite interesting. It's funny how it definitely strikes you as the peat hits that bit harder than the previous one. But I always wonder how much that is kind of psychological, as opposed to literal. You know, these tasting notes, Gordon, can be so suggestive. When you suggested kind of different bits about phenols and flavors at the start, you're like, oh yeah. But it is a really interesting whiskey. Definitely very, very drinkable.
One that sprung to mind, and it's you that made it spring, Luke, was Connemara. That very, very sweet, very subtle smokiness.
Mm.
I can see similarities here. When you say the name, like, shit, Peatheart.
That's interesting because Connemara, even though it's an Irish distilled whiskey, they source their peated barley from Scotland. So I don't know if how genetically close this whiskey the barley might actually be. I literally no idea, but yeah, you know, be interesting to speculate because that is an Irish peated, that is Scottish barley and Scottish peat. So you know, they're cousins at least, let's say. Guy Hill said lovely flavor, well peated and well rounded and sweet aftertaste. Martin has said, well, they are all amazing. Want one of each. Very much a sherry fan, but the peated option works so well and balanced perfectly. David said, perfect combo of sweet and smoky is the Peatheart. The Peatheart is hearty and peaty, says Luke Orr. So I suppose now we're coming to the time of the night, folks. We want to get your preferences in terms of which dram you like the best. And Richard has said, just grab some Parmesan out the fridge, really calms the peat and balances with some sweetness. Thanks, Gordon. New experience for me. Kyle Wall says, nose for me, smoky barbecue, charred meats, ash, cigar smoke, honeycomb, fruit, pickled ginger. So Richard, I'd be curious to know if it's what do they call, Gordon, the Parmesan you buy in the supermarket that's not actually Parmesan, Parmigiano, or whatever it's called, or if it's real Parmesan. We'll see if Richard's got the genuine article. Interesting to know. Is there anything else?
You need a friend from Italy that visits once a year with a suitcase full of Parmesan and leaves with a suitcase full of whiskey.
Sounds
the
like
world would be a far better. The world would be a far better place if we still dealt in barter.
No, well,
the value of a bottle of whiskey in this part of the world, it's a currency. The number of good things we've done at the distillery, we haven't paid in cash or backs or checks, but paid in liquid. Fantastic.
No, you're dead right. I mean, I'm of the belief that we never actually ever dealt in barter as a species, but I do love barter as a concept. It is brilliant. And yeah, love when it comes together in a moment like that. The amount of things I've done back home for a friend and been paid in a bottle of Pachin or something, it's brilliant. My favorite of the night is the 18-year-old, says Guy. Kyle says Peatheart Sherry Cask for me is the favorite. Ian's gone 5-2-4-3, which is Peatheart, the 12-year-old, then the Sherry Peated, then the 18. So that's interesting. Gordon's gone the 18, the Peat Sherry, Peatheart, and then the 12. Chris says has gone the 18, the 12, the Peatheart, and then the Peat Sherry. So it's a real mix tonight. Although it looks like the 18 is maybe slightly edging it. Enos says 3, the Peatheart, in terms of their flavors, and 18 as well. Richard has also confirmed that it's not real Parmesan that he has in his fridge. So there you go. As he says, the credit crunch. It's expensive. Parmesan is for a cheese that you just think you grate over your pasta. It's expensive, you know. David says new make is present.
Respect.
Well, you can afford 2 Volvos, Gordon. Like, you know, you wouldn't understand. David said the new make is present through the whole. Peatheart is number 1 for the range. Colin says has gone for the Peatheart as well. Matt says no one choosing the new make. I'm surprised, Matt, more that no one has actually even mentioned the new make in their rating. So yeah, have you any thoughts on some of the kind of tasting notes or the lineups that we've seen there, Gordon?
Initially, does anybody still have some of the previous liquids in their glasses? Go back to the 12-year-old and go back to the new make. 12-year-olds had probably about an hour to breathe now. Has it changed?
I mean, it's definitely changed for me, but I don't know, is that because, as you say, the hour to breathe, or because we've just tried some peated whiskey, so it's contrast wise it jumps out more, but it's certainly a lot more of that kind of vanilla and maybe even like a strawberry yogurt, like a petit filou, like, you know, personally. And David has said the new make is more new makey. So there you go.
No, I'm really pleased with the feedback, the tasting notes we've got here tonight. That's really exactly what we'd hoped for. Nothing too left field. Different words, but I think we've kind of been reasonably consistent there as well. Vanilla, custard, lots and lots of fruits. That's the ones that we all know smell and taste things differently.
No, we certainly do. There's 2 ways to smell and taste things, Gordon. There's my way and there's the wrong way. You know, that's what I always say. I'm obviously being facetious. Colin says new make smells amazing now. The new make actually does smell like it's almost like an eau de vie, like from Alsace or something, like, you know, like it's been aged with cherries. It's really interesting. Going back to it, it's a really good suggestion, Gordon. I must say thank you for your time as well, Gordon. We'll see if anyone has any questions that they want to pop in at the end before we finish up. But in the meantime, I've put in the discount code in the chat there, folks. It's WS16AC. That will get you 15% off all the whiskies we tried tonight, except obviously the new make, which we don't sell. So yeah, please do. Yeah, if you're watching this back in the recording or you're listening to us live, do pop along and try out any of the ones you've enjoyed tonight. There's some really good value to be had in here. I just can't remember if I've said the price of the Peatheart, so I will say that quickly, the Peatheart is £60. So I mean, it's very good value for what you get. It's actually quite an odd one, Gordon, having the two limited edition peated ones being a lower price point than the 18. I know they don't have the age statement, but you know, the limited editionness of it, I thought might change that.
Well, the Peated Sherry, as a thank you to Sweden for being our best customer. Sweden have had the Peated Sherry for 2, maybe 3 years now, and it was an exclusive to them. But it's been so well received, it's gone down so well across the sales team. We're clamouring to get it available in the rest of the European market, so that's why it's now available in the UK and probably the continent as well. Age-wise, no on age, it is quite a young whiskey. We're not getting away from that. It's nice casks. There's nothing the matter with a nice whiskey. It was a good quality new make spirit. The wood's good. That's great. Age statement or lack of age statement isn't a problem. Peated whiskies or peated whiskey, the phenols decay quite quickly during maturation. So the peated whiskies tend to be bottled slightly younger. So I don't know. Peatheart's probably 10, 11 years old. So.
No, very good. I like the idea of being so successful in one region, you're no longer exclusive. I don't know if I could convince my partner that, you know, I'm so great. Look, I do everything so well. Let's no longer be exclusive. I think it would go down like a lead balloon. But but I'm glad it's worked out for the rest of us. The Kylis's new make almost has a sweet corn fragrance to it. Now it's been left to breathe. Frank D said 12-year-old richer and tastes older now in a way. Mela said, I've just put 50-50 new make and 12 together. Would go down great with a fish course. Excellent. Frank D says, is anCnoc the best whiskey a lot of people have never tried? So that is high praise but also maybe a backhanded compliment. Darren has said, great whiskey. Thank you. And there's some great comments coming in there. So folks, Gordon, I suppose we've been on an hour and a half, which is ample time for the 5 drams. For everyone who bought a pack and tuned in tonight or is watching the recording, thank you so much for your time. It's been a really interesting evening with some great whiskies. Gordon, thank you for taking the time to join us. It's always really interesting when we get someone on who's actually you know, based up in the distillery, very hands-on, rather than some you know, an enthusiastic brand ambassador who's not maybe been around the brand for as long. So I genuinely mean that it's always really good. So thank you for taking the time on your Wednesday to join us tonight.
No, and thank you very much for having me, Luke, and thank you to everybody who's joined us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the whiskies. I have 3 children, 3 dogs to feed and educate. Please buy more whiskey. Please don't let my children go hungry and stupid, please.
That's
the feedback's been great, and we've enjoyed virtually meeting you folks. So slàinte mhath.
Yeah, no, likewise, I echo that. No, brilliant. Thank you, Gordon. Our next tasting, folks, will go on sale on Tuesday, and it is with Ben Romuck, and it'll take place on the 7th of September. So, yeah, keep Thursday, the 7th of September free. Some interesting drams in that one. So thank you again, Gordon. And for one last time, that discount code is WS16AC. If there's any issues or if there's any questions that we missed or something that springs to you if you're watching this recording and you want to ask myself or Gordon, just drop an email to the address you would have got the tasting link from, and we'll get it answered either through the whiskey shop if we can, or if it's something that only the team at anCnoc can answer, then we'll pass it on to Gordon and one of his colleagues, and we'll get it answered for you. So thank you for your time, everyone, and we'll catch you all hopefully on the next tasting. Thanks again, Gordon. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good night, folks.
Zoom is being weird to me. So good night, folks. We'll see you.